So welcome everyone to Digital Vises, a live stream series by Drift Outfitters. These presentations are designed to expose you to new fly patterns and techniques brought to you by some of the most skilled tyers that we know of from across the country. Many of these tyers are also guides and instructors, as Matt definitely is, and we hope that their years of experience and knowledge comes through in these presentations. As we all know, flies are just half the equation. If you want to see how best to fish these patterns, we would highly suggest that you get out with them so that they can show you the other half of the equation. If you do find these presentations useful and entertaining, we encourage you to consider supporting a shop that's supporting you with these live streams. Buying direct from manufacturers or big box stores directly cuts out your local fly shops. The shops that can best provide you the service that you need, host community building events, and contribute to preserving and protecting your local waterways. We would ask you to ask yourself, are the businesses that you're supporting you? You can shop with us as always online, over the phone, or in shop. This week's guest is Matt Martin, a not very unfamiliar face around here at this point. Matt has been a staple in the fly fishing community for a bunch of years now in Southern Ontario, and is, I think everyone would say, definitely one of Southern Ontario's premier fly guides at this point. A wide range of stuff. And we just had him on Tuesday to talk about cottage country bass fishing. Tonight, we're going to tie some flies. And what are we tying tonight, Matt?
We're going to do some of my favorite tying for some of my favorite species, which people might not recognize as their favorites, Carp and Gar. They're both underutilized fisheries. They're fantastic to fish for. The sight fishing opportunities are, I don't want to say endless, but there's lots of them around. And it's just an exciting way to get out and fish. So I find there's a lot of confusion around catching carp and gar on the fly. And I've got some flies here that I'm looking forward to sharing with people that'll probably help you along. Yeah,
love it. And it's interesting because both species are, I feel like they've been on the radar of a lot of fly anglers for a long time too. Maybe gar to a lesser extent, but these aren't fish like a bowfin or a white bass or something. Where like, again, great fish, but a lot less written about them, and a lot less exposure, I think, to a lot of people. Where carp, as much as some people still turn their noses up at them, I mean, they've been very much on the radar for well over a decade now for majority of years. So. Yeah. But you're right, misunderstood.
Yeah, definitely misunderstood. Reason why I'm tying both is they both inhabit the same water at the same time of year. So when I'm out there guiding for carp, I've always got a separate rod rigged up for gar that I'm willing to hand over to a person quick to get a shot. I first remember reading about gar. I don't want to say too many names. I think it was through like Fly Fusion magazine and stuff when they were going crazy in Bay of Quinte back in the early 2000s. And there was a few photographers out there that were really capturing some cool images, and people were all interested in chasing the line class records and the fly records and all that kind of stuff. So I always thought they were quite cool. I grew up in close proximity to Georgian Bay, and we'd be out northern pike fishing in the spring, and you'd see them and you just couldn't figure them out. Like, what will they eat? So over the years of kind of fine tuning presentations and learning how they eat, which is more important than what they eat, because they'll take a lot of flies. Getting them to grab is not hard. Getting them hooked and in your net is quite challenging. For anybody that's ever fished tarpon, they fished with a guide, I'm sure, that counts how many fish you jumped in a day. I often joke with gar, that's the same thing. You jumped 5. That's awesome. Because they love to get airborne, shake their head. They've got a really bony mouth, and, hard to stick. And then carp, I mean, they're fantastic. So sight fishing, the way they react to a fly, they take a multitude of patterns. Everybody wants to throw nymphs for them, which is great, but they are predatory too in some of our lakes, willing to chase down crayfish and gobies and leeches, minnows. They're actually such a fantastic fly rod species, and they both are in their own rights. And I'm looking forward to running through 3 of my favorite patterns. I had to dig through my box because I've done a couple carp streams or a carp stream with you guys before, so I didn't want to duplicate any flies. So here's a few new ones, and then I haven't done anything for gar. So I think this will be the first time I'm sharing like my recipe for my gar fly anywhere. I've posted photos of it. I don't think I've ever shared how to tie it. So
big night, exciting times.
Yeah, exciting, right? So I think what we'll do first is we'll jump into some carp patterns. We'll get those, go through those, talk about them, how I construct the flies. Some of them are going to be, well, one of them for sure is going to be recognizable, but I want to start with one that is probably the most reliable carp fly for common carp anywhere in the world. If you ask any carp angler, I'm going to turn my camera around. I've already got one in the vise, and that's called the hybrid. It is a mix of a worm and a nymph and a bugger and everything. And what it's really designed to do is get down to bottom quick, and just wiggle in their face. I tie this fly with a chenille tail, like the one we're going to do tonight, but also with a squirmy worm tail at times. Sometimes they want something that's moving a little bit more. So I believe the hybrid was invented by Joe Montana, I think is the name. It was designed originally to impersonate freshwater clams, mussels that have this little foot that filter feeds and pulls in, filters through the water to feed. So it's great in the Great Lakes. Our bottoms are covered in zebra mussels, quagga mussels in the deeper water, and the carp feed on them quite regularly. Carp, people think, oh, mussels, like, shells, those are pretty tough. They don't have teeth. How do they crush them? Well, back of their throat, they've got these big crushing plates. If you actually catch one and look in their mouth, you can see them. They're these giant teeth, basically, big molars that will just crush these, and then they'll expel everything but the meat. So they're pretty interesting and a very effective fish. As we know, they're probably one of the world's most invasive species. They've been introduced absolutely everywhere, and they take off because they can live in any water type, moving, cold, warm, still, somewhat brackish, like they're all over the place. But I mean, that makes them accessible, but it doesn't make them easy to catch. So when you go carp fishing, if you feel like you threw at 100 carp and didn't catch one, don't beat yourself up. That is normal. When people ask me to take them carp fishing, I definitely tell them we're going to cast at a lot of fish, or we're going to see a lot of fish. We're going to cast at a few, and we're hopefully going to get one. That's a good day. Some days, and I shared a video not that long ago of where they're actively chasing gobies. It's a little bit chaotic. You throw a bait fish into that school of fish and just slow strip, and you're on. But most days you're having to force them. When you got to force them to eat, this is usually the number one fly that I tie on, and it gets them going. So without any further ado, I guess we can jump on into it. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good.
Cool.
Should have mentioned as well, if anyone has questions, please just drop them into the chat. Type them out there, and then we'll answer those as they come in. So please feel free.
All right. So actually, I should say, before I drop this fly to the vise, put in an empty hook, you'll see my flies tied with a multitude of bead chain eyes, lead eyes, small lead eyes, brass eyes, no eyes. With carp flies, a lot of the time it's just having the same fly in varied weights. The fish can be very spooky, so you don't want to plop. This one's got the small painted lead eyes, which will still land with quite a splash. So you want to fish this fly in 3-4 feet of water. If you're having to cast right on top of them, this might not be the eyes, and you might want to put, just bead chain, small bead chain or something on there. But play with it, play with your weights, and have a varied amount of weights. So I'm going to drop this one out. We're going to get started. So for my hook, I like a short shanked, kind of like an octopus hook. This is actually a Raven octopus hook. Guys use it for center pinning. I do like it because it's super strong. I don't like messing around with carp on lighter hooks just because they tend to be quite big where I target them. It's nothing to hook into 20 pounders. That's pretty common with shots with fish over 30 pounds, no problem. So you want to make sure you got a stout hook because they're gonna take line, but you will at times need to turn them and put a little power on them. And I've straightened out lesser hooks many times. So every hook I'm going to tie on today is like a 3X or 4X heavy kind of wire gauge. So I'm going to start off with just some black 6/0 thread, nothing too fancy. Actually, I'm going to give a little space, probably start about mid shank, wrap over your thread and down around the bend a little bit. That's going to allow the chenille to prop up when it's sitting on the bottom. I left the gap at the front there just so that we can build up a nice little thread dam for the eyes. So I'll put a dam behind and a dam in front, then you put the eyes in between that locks them in so they don't spin on you. Your first material is going to be like this is the cerise, San Juan worm chenille. What do you call the extra small? There's like a term for it.
The ultra chenille.
Ultra chenille. Thank you. I almost said rayon, but that's not right. But yeah, so it's a really good pliable material. what I like to do with it, because it's quite rigid, like I should put it in the camera right now. If you like work it in your fingers a little bit, and you can like break it down a little bit, like the memory in it, it'll help it wobble a bit more underwater when it's down there. Just break it down, it comes into a little ball, and then like stretch it out. Now it's going to be a little bit softer, and it's going to have a little bit more movement, especially once it gets wet for the first time. First thing I like to do is just take a little lighter, just singe the end just a little bit, just so now it won't unravel on you. Although this stuff seems pretty good without having to singe it, I still like to, just to make sure. I want the tail to be about, let's say, almost 2 times the shank length, roughly 1.5. We're going to wrap that in on top of the shank, a couple nice turns, and then just walk it down around the bend, but making sure to leave lots of bend for your hooked fish, and walk it back up to the top. Trim that short. Get in front of it, and this is where I'm going to create those thread dams. This is kind of what I guess I found it useful when I was tying clousers a lot. So you kind of build up a little ball of thread right about there, not too big, but just enough, and then create a little gap, and then another ball of thread, but not as big, I find, just a little pump. There you go. And then I'm just using the small solid black eyes. I find most of my carp flies, they don't involve a lot of flash. I don't think you need a flashy fly for them. Opaque colors tend to do well for me. With the exception of bead chain, I often use silver bead chain, but like that's just the standard color that it comes in. So then you place that in between the 2 humps, and you start your crisscross figure 8 wraps. Just loose to start. And then I'm going to go around the bottom of them, just kind of almost like parachute style a few times, just to really pull everything together, test the rigidity. No, a couple more. And I am tying in front of my camera, so it might bump the camera every once in a while. I apologize if it moves. That's pretty good. You're now gonna get all the way back down to the base. And that's why I love this fly so much, and why it's the first one to go on, because it's really just 3 materials. We're now gonna use some, it's like the peacock black ice dub. Got a little bit of like green in it. I find works well. I think the traditional called for peacock hurl, actually. But peacock hurl tends to be pretty brittle. You can counterwrap it with copper wire or tippet, or you can use super glue, CA glue, whatever, on your thread. I don't like a lot of glues on my carp flies. I once read that they can smell like the head cement. Now, not sure how true it is, but the minute I stopped using it, I feel like I started catching more. Now that might have just been me getting a better presentation, but ever since then, I haven't really messed around. Once I dubbed the thread into a fairly simple noodle, I'm just wrapping it up. Missed a couple spots, so that's okay. And just a nice, no real taper, just a nice level black body. The final material is going to be like a soft grizzly hackle. I actually ran out of grizzly hen saddle, but if you look on your like rooster capes and stuff, this is just a bugger pack. Often at the back and like near the sides, on the side, there's like softer, webbier hackles instead of the stiff hackles. By the way, these things are like wicked. There's so many feathers in them for what you get, and like everyone's like, oh, they're for buggers, right? So you got like these like size 8 and 6 feathers, but it always comes with 2 pieces, and the other piece is often a lot smaller. So like you can tie down to like pretty small. Those are like size 14, maybe 16. So if you're dry fly tire too, like those work great. And for $30, like you can't beat it, or whatever it is, $40, like it's a great deal. So what I like to do with this is I'm going to tie it in kind of tip first. I'm going to pull the fibers back here, and then tie in the gap right behind the lead eyes, just a couple of loose turns, and then pull tight. I'm just going to snip off that guy there. Clean it all up at the end here. I think I actually might need a couple more. There we go. And then, oh, I forgot. I usually trim the webby fibers off just to make tying it in. And of course, I forgot my hackle pliers, but that's okay. It's a pretty big feather, except for tying around the camera and everything makes it actually quite challenging now that I'm doing it. Wow, okay, let's try that again.
It's a good test for you. Do you,
Yeah, it's weird. It's like bear hugging someone and trying to tie a fly.
exactly. Do you mess around much with different color combos? I know the original is more of like a red tail and
Red.
peacock.
I do a lot better with pink. I don't know why. This pink and this black peacock dubbing is wicked for me. So it's just, I should say it's just 3 turns here. How am I gonna do this now? I'm gonna go pull some material. There we go. That is not fancy, but we do what we got to do. Yeah, the original is definitely the red ultra chenille, but pink works great for me. Red works great. I've caught them on brown. I've caught them on the, actually another great one in the chenille is the shell pink, I believe it's called. It's like a light pinky tan. It works really good. But play with them, play with the colors. You know, that's really the fly there. This, if you've been out with me, you'll recognize it. I mean, it's probably the first fly we throw 90% of the time. Throw a little whip finish in there. And then I do a double whip just because I'm not using head cement. So I trim it with a little bit of a tag. I find that helps it not fall apart. The cool thing about this when you tie it with ice dub is it does get a little buggy looking on like the peacock. You catch a couple fish on it, it starts to, I don't know, almost work better. If you want to, you can brush it out or pick it out before you start. But it's a deadly fly. And the whole goal is that the fly will actually ride hook point up. So it's going to sit almost like that. The fibers in the hackle are going to prop it up in the mud. The fish aren't really going to see the hackle too much. All they're going to see is this pink worm in the contrast. So zebra mussel is black with white stripes. So the black represents that, although it's obviously the size is quite different. But similar to a San Juan worm, a lot of the time when we're steelheading, there's not a lot of 3 and 4 inch pink worms floating down the river. But there's a lot of 1 inch worms in there. And I think they just see that big piece of steak and can't resist sometimes. So same thing. Yeah, this would be, if I was in a new spot, never caught a carp before, this would be the first fly I throw on and start presenting to them in a multitude of sizes and weights. So I tie this from a size 10 to a size 4, and this is on a size 4. So it's on the big side. When I see them commercially tied a lot of the time, I'm not sure what you guys have in your shop, but I've seen them tied huge, like size 2 and size 1, and they're just way too big. Carp, although they got they're big fish, they like small meals. So yeah, I'm sure if you're interested in carp fishing at all, you've seen this fly before. It's pretty straightforward. Cool.
Killer.
Sounds good. The next one I want to show is a bit of a personal nymph I've developed over the last couple of years. It's based on the wiggle hex, which we all know on our major bodies of water around here. Hexagena nymphs we're full, very sandy bottoms, sediment bottoms in Lake Ontario, Georgian Bay, Lake Simcoe. These nymphs, they emerge en masse for about a week or maybe a week and a half in June usually. And oftentimes you'll get out there in the morning and all you'll see are nymph shucks on the surface. You'll be wading through the shoreline of the first 5-6 feet. And there's just nymph shucks and they're big. This is tied on that same size 4 hook. And this whole fly is about 1.5 inches long, maybe even bigger, 1 3/4. They're not a subtle nymph at all. They are a burrowing mayfly, so they're really only available when they start emerging. However, carp rooting around in the mud, they're always going to see them. I think I don't know how deep the hexagenas burrow, but I'm sure they dig them up when they're rooting around. So it's always on their food chain. The other cool thing about this, unlike the standard wiggle hex, I tied this specifically with carp because the back shank, which is actually a number 8 curved nymph hook that I just clipped, is tied with an underbody of closed cell foam, which actually props it up in their face and just constantly wiggles around in the current. Also, that little yellow nub is a bit of a hot spot. No hexagena nymph is going to have that, but it's in their face. And I've seen a lot of carp anglers, especially on the conventional side, that like using things called like pop-ups, which are scented little balls, or zig rigs, which are basically a fly with a weight and it's a floating fly and it just gets the carp interest. So same kind of idea, just something that's high contrast, stands out and kind of, oh, what is that? Maybe I should eat it. So not only is it a deadly fly for carp, everything kind of turns on to the hexagenas for about a week. So even the smallies will love to eat this fly. That's a great one. So let's get started on that. So the back section, just a number 8 long curved nymph hook, kind of standard. Oh, I forgot my pliers, so we're gonna have to forgive. Actually, no, I can probably just break it off in the vise. That's what I'll do. I put it in and then I tend to like straighten it just to try to get, I'm turning it into a shank anyways, so it doesn't matter. But now you can see I've kind of played with the hook and now it's just a fine wire hook, nice and straight. So normally I take my side cutters, but I happen to leave those at my tying bench, which doesn't have the best Wi-Fi down in my basement. So I'm gonna just try to wiggle that off to break it. There we go. And we will not lose that because that is nice and sharp. There we go. Cool. So that's pretty good. Just a little bit more straightening to it. You could probably also just use like a pre-bought shank, but I like the light wire on these hooks. The shanks can be pretty heavy wire sometimes. So in comparison, and because I want it to float, so yeah, almost there. I had everything laid out, Chris. I can't believe I forgot that one critical piece.
Something. So any difference to how you fish this versus the hybrid?
Okay, so pretty much every carp fly I present is going to depend on the activity level of the carp. So it's different day to day. First off, you almost always need high sun, something that you can see the fish. You need to be able to see them from 30, 40 feet away while they're comfortable. It's nothing to see them at 40 feet away when they're spooked and splashing and taking off, but you got to be able to see them before they see you. So sun and low wind is key, but that also makes for very spooky fish. So you need to, there's a couple different ways to present them. My favorite is a cast and presentation. I think it was really kind of trademarked down in like Utah and Nevada in the spooky clear lakes. They have reservoirs and they call it drag and dropping. So you cast it well beyond the fish. I'm talking, you have your 9-foot 8-weight and you're probably throwing a 14-foot leader a lot of the time with tippet. So you're casting 14, 15 feet. No, you're casting 12 feet beyond the fish. You don't want to line the fish, but you want to get the fly past them and you want your leader to land on top of them, so to speak. Once that fly hits the surface, you are then lifting the rod tip and you are dragging that fly just underneath the surface until you're about 6 inches either side of that fish's eyes. And then you're dropping the rod tip back to the surface, which will cause the fly to plummet right down on top of the fish without splashing. That's key. You splash, they're gone. You have to cast beyond them, drag it into their feeding zone and drop it. With carp, once they're engaged on it, the best way to get them to eat is do nothing. Just leave it there. I see a lot of people wanting to bump it and just play with that little tarpon bump or strip it like they're bone fishing. Unless you're fishing predatory fish, if they're feeding on nymphs or they're just sitting still and you're just like, oh, there's a fish. Most of the time, once they turn on it and look at it, just leave it. You'll see them start tasting the water. I don't know if I should turn the camera around, but they'll start like using their mouth and they'll be opening and closing around the fly. And you just got to wait for that telltale tell for when the tell anyways, when the fish sucks it up and turns. So you'll notice eventually the fish will feel the hook and then it's just a strip set. You just gotta be ready for it. A lot of the time, the way they suck these flies up and then spit them out because they realize it's fake, they get hooked. Like they get pricked at least by the hook. And then it's up to you just to get tight, a nice 6-inch strip set, because if they didn't, you don't want that fly going too far. You want it close. And a lot of the time they'll come back for it and pick it up again. So yeah, I usually just present it and do nothing. Get it to them and leave it there. Great question. So I'm gonna start, it's gonna be fun. Tighten that up a little bit. Start the thread at the eye, and I want the tail to be about 3/4 of an inch long or so. So got that. And then the underbody we're going to start with is just like 2mm closed cell foam. You can buy it in packs at your shop. Multiple colors. It doesn't matter. Play with colors. I like yellow, orange. It's pretty good to go. Pretty easy going. But I then cut it into about a 4, maybe more like a 5 or a 6mm strip. It's about 3 or 4 inches long with enough to work with. The trick then I like to do is just take your scissors and just punch a hole roughly in the middle between the 2 ends. And then you're just going to go over the eye of the hook. Fold it in half, similar to the way you'll do extended bodies for if you're doing foam, like coffin flies or something like that, same idea. just push it past where your thread is and hold it in place while you take one first securing wrap of thread. That's gonna get the foam in there. And then you're just gonna wrap down sparsely because you don't want to trap too much of the foam, because the more you trap, the less buoyant it's gonna be. Put a lot of wraps at the head. You see it's pretty wide right now. That's okay, we're gonna go back up. We're gonna shrink it a little bit because it's a little bit too big right now. Cool. And it's gonna spin around the shank. It's a little challenging to tie with. You're gonna go back. Before you go all the way up, you're gonna take, put it just some small copper wire. Secure that down here, actually. Doesn't really matter where it goes. It's gonna be kind of ugly underneath, but don't worry, we're gonna cover this all with a palmered marabou feather. But you can see there's still lots of little air pockets I've left. I'm not cinching that right down. There we go. So the next thing you're going to get is just some tan marabou. Hexagenas, any burrowing mayfly, they tend to be fairly tan, light colored, living under the ground, not much light around, so can't go wrong with tan. I like to take a feather that I'm not really going to use too much for anything else, something that's a little bit chunky looking. This will work, because I'll save the other ones for palmering for nicer flies and things like that. So we're going to pull just to the tip of this one here. And we're going to leave about a 1/4 inch, maybe a little longer off the back. We're going to leave this last big nub of foam. That's going to be your main floating section and a hot spot. So 1/4 inch or so. Secure that with just a couple of wraps. And you're going to take the good old fashioned turkey tail. You could use thin skin too. That would work really well. But I got lots of turkey tail. We'll use it up. Take a section and I tie it in from the tips. But before I do, I kind of clip the tips. I find the tips are pretty brittle. This will help keeping it secure. And then I'm just gonna try to do this correctly. Secure it to the top without crunching them too much, so it remains fairly flat, so I get a nice shell back all the way down the rear station of this fly. So hard to do with this camera. Oh my gosh, okay. There we go. Okay, so I haven't crunched it too much. The material's still nice and broad, as you can see. It's just secured by the tip. And then I'm going to work the thread back to the front here, all while making sure I haven't crowded that hook eye too much. And then you're going to take your marabou and you're just going to give it a little spin around the entire abdomen now, I guess, of this fly. Perfect. And then you're just going to secure that. It's a little bit more work than a standard carp fly I would put in, because you do lose quite a few to rocks and broken off fish, things like that. I should mention tippet strength. I'm usually using 12 pound. If I'm in heavy weeds, I might go up to 15, but generally 10 or 12. So now I'm going to keep that turkey tail fairly tight, and then I don't want it to collapse, so I'm going to pull it down and I'm going to press my thumb on top of the hook shank just to keep all those married fibers together. It is carp fly though, so if they do split, it's not the end of the world. There we go. And they split a little bit, so that's okay. But that's going to give you the contrast that you're looking for. Clip that. The head on this doesn't need to be particularly clean because it's going to be hidden pretty much along the size 4 hook. Ooh, do another finish, I guess. So I'm starting on that. There we go. Then I'm going to throw this in the bobbin cradle rest. And I'm just going to take my copper rib, run 1, maybe 6 different segmentations up the body, fairly evenly spaced, and maybe less, 4 or 5. That's just going to add some durability to not only the shell back, but also the marabou. This marabou gets pretty brittle without it if you're using it as like a body wrap. Then I'm just going to secure it by going around the copper wire once and then over a couple times, back around the copper wire and over. And then just the copper wire, just give it a little wiggle and it'll break off. Save your scissors, or use a pair of old scissors. And a nice little lip finish. I definitely crowded the eye on this, but that's okay. It's going to work because it's going to be hidden. So the next step, take some old expired or just tippet you forgot about in your car for a year. That's probably no longer 4.8 pound break strength. I like the thin tippet because it's going to allow good movement on the fly. Cut off 6 inches. And I'm just going to thread that through. But that might be a challenge because the materials in the eye. I used to use wire a lot, but I never got the movement I was looking for. So there we go. Cool. That's threaded. Now you're just going to put that aside. What I would do usually at this point is break, like snip that off. But I obviously don't have my side cutters. We talked about that. So put that aside for now. You're going to take that same size for steelhead or octopus hook. You're going to pop that in your bite. And I like to start it on a bit of a downward angle, back off the tension, just so that I can get the right angle on there. I'm going to take that same, I'm going to take the same tan 6/0 thread I was using. Again, kind of middle, 3/4 down the hook shank. And go slightly around the bend, maybe not as far as I would with the hybrid. I just want to encourage this to not foul on the hook shank and allow it to naturally present in the angle I want it to. Now, keep in mind, I'm going to put hourglass, not hourglass, not well, you could use hourglass eyes, but bead chain eyes on the top of the shank. So the fly is going to fish inverted. So make sure you put your shell back, which is top of the fly, on a downward angle here. Just going to lash in this 5X tippet. You can use heavier tippet, but because there's no hook in it, like you don't need to. I haven't had a problem with it breaking. Just wiggles around a lot better. Perfect. Nice and soft. And then double it over and then just go back up. That'll just keep it from pulling out at least, because this 5X tippet is quite thin. It's gonna, it'll easily fall off. Although the one downfall is I didn't bring my side cutter, so now I gotta, these are old scissors, so I'm just gonna cut the back, hopefully, with the bead chain. Oh, dang it.
I hear you can just bite bead chain off too.
What? Come on.
Try it.
I'm not, you paying my dental bill? There we go.
Don't try it.
Old pair of scissors. Good thing I got them. They work. So now I'm just going to put my bead chain in pretty far forward. I'm not really going to worry about that same thread dam I did with the lead eyes because the material holding the two beads together is pretty thin. It tends to lock in pretty good. So just leave enough room there to finish your fly. Same kind of pattern though. A few hourglass wraps around the base. Pull it tight. Check first. Make sure it's tight. A couple more wraps around the bottom. Pull it tight. That's good. Other added benefit of bead chain is it's got a little bit of a natural rattle. Not a lot. It does have a little bit of a sound to it, which is great. All right. So now we're going to go back to that for the front station. Go back to that copper small ribbing. And tuck it out of the way for now. And now your marabou feather that you're left with, you got these little tufts on the side. Don't throw them away. That's going to be your body material. So you're just going to pull those off. And then I kind of stack them. I'll show you. So that way they're all together. The butts are together. Now you're just left with these tips here. So I'm going to pull those all together. Give those super wispy tips a snip because they're not going to hold anything. And that should be good. Tied in by those tips. Reason I like marabou for this fly and any real burrowing mayfly is they've got a lot of gills. You look at them. They tend to be a fluttery kind of looking fly. They're not like a stonefly or something that tends to be super rigid when you tie them. The material, the body of those flies is quite wispy. I'm just going to palmer this forward. This is pretty much just the standard hex now at this point. Wiggle hex. There we go. So I'll get those fibers out of the way. A little short on the marabou. That'll do. Secure that in behind bead chain. There we go. And snip that off. Perfect. Little stray ends, you can always clip or even leave them, adds extra movement. Before I wrap my copper, I'm just throwing in a couple turns, maybe a single overhand or one whip to keep it from falling off when I start to wrap. And I'll just use my vise to just spin up the hook. But because I'm going along the bend of the hook, you kind of have to go left and right with your wire as you wrap to start to keep the spacing. There you go. Perfect. Back around. Kick that out of the way. Same thing underneath. 1, 2, 3. Back around the copper again. 1, 2, 3. And give it a little wiggle. There we go. Perfect. We'll go back a little bit. This is to secure that copper, but also create room for the thorax now. So we're going to tie in some more turkey tail. And yes, I know there's a little gap between the back shell wing case and the front wing case, but so far I haven't had any fish tell me they noticed. It works just fine. Let's invert the fly. We're going to tie that in so it lands on top. Great. Then we're going to take some rusty dub, ice dub brown, rusty dub, or ice dub rusty brown. It's a nice color. I like this for a lot of things. We're just going to loosely dub it with a little bit of wax so that it creates a nice buggy profile. Nick was tying some flies last week from like Kevin Feenstra that were quite buggy with dub and from his kind of style. And not do it quite as loose as that, but a nice in between. I'm gonna just, there we go. So fairly thick, kind of wispy noodle. Go around. Cool, perfect. And before we end, I'm going to take a hen feather, or personally, I really like ruffed grouse for this fly. For a lot of my flies, I think it makes a nice natural tying material. And if you do any hunting or anything yourself, you'll just get tons of them. So I've got lots of these feathers laying around. They work fantastic. Nice long fiber, very webby, great legs. But a hen hackle, saddle hackle would be great as well. Or a hen neck, I guess. And we're just going to tie that in on top between the eyes with a bunch of wraps before we trim it. Okay, again, forgot to pull my fuzzy fibers off. All right, you're going to just gently stroke those back so they kind of lay properly, or just break it like I did. It's awesome. I'm sure you've never done that, Chris.
Not once. That's why you should buy the best quality hackles from Drifts.
It's so true, because the stems are better. All right, and it's just one wrap. We're not looking for a ton of legs here. We don't want it to be like the head of a bugger where you've got 2 or 3 extra wraps. It's just going to create some good movement. Sparse is key with these flies because they are going to allow for more movement. And just trim that off. And before we finish, we're going to do a little bit of a tighter ball of dubbing between the eyes and behind the eyes, behind and then over, maybe just a little bit more. Not that the fish would care, but gotta be consistent. Perfect. Invert it again. Then we're going to take our scissors would work, or a dubbing needle, which is laying here somewhere. There we go. And I'm just going to separate the feathers, fibers, which way they want to go naturally, left and right. I'm going to take that turkey feather, just pull it over the back, just like a standard wing case on any nymph. Push it down with your thumb and a couple loose wraps. Fold the feather back, a couple more just to secure it. There we go. And then one overhand knot just to secure everything, make sure everything looks good, and then throw in a whip finish. And one more for good measure. Trim it up, and then again take your dubbing needle and just pick out the ice dub a little bit. Not a lot, just brush it out. It looks nice and buggy that way. I think also the ice dub and the webby feather will soften the entry into the water a little bit when the fly lands. But now you've got this really swimmy, again, you would normally trim that off. But if you were to, you have this really swimmy hex, if you drop this in a bucket of water, or I don't know, on the bottom, you're going to see that tail just ride straight up in the air. That foam will keep it up all day. Sometimes if you're noticing it sinking, well, I always have extra flies, but if you want to at the beginning of the day, throw some dry fly floating on the marabou. It'll help keep it waterproof, and it doesn't really have any scent. Doesn't seem to bug the carp. So yeah, you can swim it, you can crawl it, you can just play it dead. Sometimes when there's an active hatch going on, which does happen usually at night, the carp will take them mid-water column, but most of the time it's right along the bottom. Don't feel bad about letting it hit the bottom, kick up a little dust with a few strips, and then once you engage a fish, just kill it. Cool. Very cool. Did you say you just tie it in the one size? Yeah, usually just size 4. Like I tie it on a size 4 hook, and it's about, what do you call that, 1.5 inches, 1.75 inches long. You could probably go smaller, but I haven't seen a need to. Nice. And do you find with the buoyant tail that you have to tie this in a heavier size for equivalent depth water to your other flies, or do you think that? No, I think most of the time you're carp fishing, it's in water less than 3 feet deep. You don't want it to be over your knees too much. It's just hard to get the fly down to the fish in time. They're moving a lot of the time. Carp will often have their backs out of the water when they're feeding. So almost there's no such thing as too shallow water. You'll see the tails out just like a redfish scooting around the flats. Super fun. So yeah, this fly sinks pretty quick, but not too fast. Those large bead chain eyes will probably drop it, I don't know, and it's 3 foot deep. My deepest I fished them in maybe 1.5 seconds. Like it's pretty quick, but it's not like a stone hitting bottom. Because also part of the way you want to present these flies to the fish is on the drop. They'll get that movement and you'll engage them. So when they talk about putting it on their dinner plate, they mean like 6 inches from left or right of the carp. I didn't mention carp do have a blind spot kind of right in front of their nose, it seems, especially larger fish. Their eyes are so far apart and so far set back that they can't see right at their nose. So if you can drop the fly left or right and get one eye to kind of catch it, you'll do a lot better. You'll often see in like investigatory kind of sucks on the bottom looking for what just fell. So yeah, absolutely deadly fly for carp, smallmouth, yeah, anything out there, especially when the mayflies are around. Excuse me. Cool. Sweet. Keep going. Yeah, absolutely. Right. As a reminder to everyone, if you have questions, plug them in there. Definitely. Yeah, Rob was asking if you use that same fly for smallmouth. So you're saying you do. 100%. Yeah, it's great. I mean, it can be hard, right? When the hexes are hatching, like the fish feed up on them at night, especially smallies and walleye, things like that. You've probably all heard like people, old timers say, oh, the mayflies are hatching, the walleye aren't biting. Well, they're biting just on not a jig and minnow, right? But it can be hard. They do get full. But the nice thing is it's just a small meal, maybe even after the bugs have hatched, you know, that week or so after. It's like, oh, there's one, you know, they're used to feeding on them. They'll come back. So yeah, that's awesome. Great question. The next one is for predatory fish. And this is something that's a little bit more, I guess, new on the radar for a lot of anglers when they think of carp fishing. Because Carp aren't just insectivorous, they are feeding on bait fish, pescivorous as well. Maybe not to the same degree in every body of water, but where I fish, they definitely love to eat gobies, crayfish. I've seen them schooling up and eating shiners in the fall when they're running up into the bays. So this one here is definitely not my fly. It's called the potato chip sculpin. It's been around for quite a while. I've kind of just changed some colors to suit my needs for the gobies that are out there. The reason I like it is I fish a lot of sculpin helmets too for carp. In the deeper water, when it's windy, when there's some good wave and chop, I want to stay in constant contact with that fly. This is a lot more of a subtle presentation. It doesn't land as hard, doesn't sink as fast, it swims a lot nicer. And if you go out and do this enough, you will see groups of carp schooled up, pushing along the rocks. And all of a sudden one will just turn to the left and just snap something up. And then another one will go. And it's generally gobies. The great thing about gobies is they don't have a swim bladder like sculpin, so they live right on the bottom. So it's perfect for carp to eat. That is, like, it's almost feel like if there's a bait fish designed for carp to eat, it's these guys. Also a fantastic smallmouth fly. It looks kind of similar to the fly that Nick Roman just tied last week in terms of the color patterns and everything. But it is a little different, but it's the same principle. It's gonna look like a goby, especially in the Great Lakes. A lot of them tend to be light colored, like this sand color. However, one thing to note, gobies, unlike a lot of fish, spawn multiple times a year. I think it's every 6 to 8 weeks a female goby can spawn. The crazy thing is a male goby will go completely black when they go spawn. So fishing this in a black, like a leech looking thing, they'd be like, are you kidding me? No, it looks just like a male goby. And sometimes the fish key in on them. I've seen that before with smallmouth and carp where, you know, maybe there's like a mass spawning going on of them. And those males are so much easier to see compared to the generic goby that's this color just along the bottom. So let's whip one of these up pretty quick.
Right on. Sorry, Matt, I actually misunderstood Rob's question before you get on that one. He's actually asking how you fish that X for smallies. Would be the same presentation as the carp.
Oh, for smallies, I would definitely move it. Yeah, smallmouth tend to be, I mean, they're definitely sometimes just so aggressive. Getting that little twitch in there, let it get to bottom, strip it, swim it to the surface, you know, do that. I might even forego the floating section and those bigger bead chain eyes and just fish it lighter and swim it. You know, you could fish this same pattern, but without the foam even, and it would be better at swimming probably. This is designed to sit on the bottom, tail up. The original version of this fly is there's no foam. It just sits kind of like this and it'll undulate in the water while you're stripping. So if I was fishing it for smallie specifically, I would probably go with the original version without the foam. But yeah, if you swim it, it's going to wiggle and wobble and drive them crazy. Probably wouldn't do so bad on trout either, to be honest. Especially if there's a coffin fly hatch or something like that going on. Cool. Sorry about that. So for the next one, the potato chip goby, I like to tie a lot of my streamers on these streamer waves by Hammock. Awesome hook, heavy gauge. You're not going to straighten them out. Barbless is also nice. I didn't mention that. Those hooks I just tied on are all barbed. Carp have a really soft mouth, but it's muscular, but it's hard to get a hook out sometimes. Like it wants to bite and you feel like you do damage. In fact, when you look at all the carp aficionados over in Europe, they catch the fish and then they put like an antibacterial ointment on the hook wounds because they're so worried about the contaminants in the fish. Generally, where they live over there isn't the cleanest water. They're in stuck ponds and things like that. But so they can be a bit of a pain to unhook, especially if they take one deep because they are a vacuum cleaner. Like they suck things so far back. So I usually pinch my barbs. Also doesn't hurt when you're teaching people to cast into 20-kilometer-hour headwinds at 30, 40 feet. Someone's going to get hooked. So going barbless is always in your best interest. You don't lose that many fish, honestly, ever. These things are just pulling machines. So just keep them tight and you're good to go. So either a size 6 or a size 8. Got the size 8s here, which are kind of a nice all-around streamer hook. And they got that little wave point to them, which I guess is designed to help keep things hooked. It's hard to see in the image, but the point kind of goes in and around to maybe keep them oriented properly. All right. we're gonna do here. So I'm gonna keep going with that sand colored thread, 6/0, starting back maybe 2 hook eyes from the eye itself and going back to the bend of the hook. I'm gonna go forward and we're gonna tie in that bead chain, which I have to cut with my scissors again. I'll add scissors to my list of stuff I'm getting when I show up at your shop next week.
I need a fresh set at this rate.
Yeah, I don't know. I go through so many pairs. It's just because I guess I tie so much, but I have not found a way to sharpen them. I just turn them into metal scissors and then they slowly migrate towards the trash. And I buy a new pair. And you don't, I mean, there's actually like such good prices on that stuff too. Like those loom scissors are so sharp when they come brand new. It doesn't take long. Oh, after a season or of tying, they're like, not so great, but make great wire scissors, or in this case, bead chain scissors. All right, cool. So the undertail, which is funny. If you watched Nick's presentation last week, it's the same material, that sand colored craft fur, awesome stuff. Works great for a multitude of patterns. The material itself, I like to pull off a pretty good, healthy chunk because we're going to use the underfur, which underfur, if you want to call it that, as dubbing. So I'm going to snip that right at the base, and then we'll separate it. So we'll kind of grab the middle section here of the material, the craft fur, and then just pull out all the underfur, which makes an awesome dubbing actually for this fly, for the body. So you get all this messy dubbing. Put that aside. Then craft fur, I think, is in like 4 or 5 lengths when they attach it to the material. So I like to kind of hand stack the material. There's going to be, if you look at this, like 3/4 of the materials all kind of end here, and then you got this last little quarter that extends. You could trim it, but I like the natural look of hand stacking. So you're just going to pull out those longer fibers. You're left with those smaller fibers. You're just going to hand blend those back in a little shorter. Creates a nice natural taper to the fly. So I'm going to make this, I don't want this to be super long. This fly is pretty short. I would say a hook length of craft fur, not too much. It's also going to help with the rabbit strip from wrapping on the hook itself when you're casting, although I keep that pretty short too. And go forward. At this point, instead of wrapping up over the craft fur, I like to pull it back, go back up to the eyes and bring it back over, pull that tight, and now you can wrap back comfortably. You're not like chasing it around the hook shank and everything like that. So it's a little bit easier to tie it in. Flip that off, add that to your dubbing pile. Find your rubber legs. So a nice olive or tan silicone legs. It's been used a lot. So nice olive kind of fleck works great. We'll pull off 2 of those. And I should mention while I'm tying this fly is fished usually quite a bit more aggressively. So when they're feeding on gobies, they're not afraid to turn and chase. So get it in front of them, predict where they're going to go, let it hit bottom. And then once they're within about 2 or 3 feet, a couple nice short 6-inch strips to get their interest. And then I'm going to tie in these rubber legs, roughly the length, maybe a little bit longer than the craft fur. And try to make sure they're similar length. You know what, we'll just trim them after to fit. Put them off to the inside first. Well, it doesn't really matter. Just get them both secured in there. Okay, now you're in. Those between the dumbbell eyes, you can get a few securing wraps. And then take the same rubber legs, bring them around the far side, and tie them in again. All right, bring those all up together. Find the shortest one and match the shortest one. Cool. Carp love rubber legs. I don't know what it is. Almost all of my flies, not all of them, but a lot of them have it. So in this stage with the dubbing, I'm going to throw in a dubbing loop. So just a simple dubbing loop, but I like to do 2. So I do the 1 loop, then I go back around, do a second especially with anything like 6/0 or thinner, adds a little bit of structure. And then if you saw that, I guess I went through quick. I'm coming back around all 4 strands, I guess, ultimately. I'm grouping them together with 2 wraps and then pulling back up to the body. That's going to allow the material to create a nice tight closure at the top so the dubbing can sit in there. Insert your dubbing tool first because it's a pain after if you forget. Just tuck it under your finger. So a little quick wax. And then you're going to take this super buggy craft fur. You're just going to stick it in there. Doesn't really matter, 90 degrees, or you kind of want it 90 roughly, but it's not important. We're not going to pick this out. We're going to try to get a fairly tight dubbing noodle out of it. So once we get it in there, we're actually going to spin it, and then I'll actually twist it like normal dubbing just to make sure it's on there nice and tight. So once you get it all in there, pinch the 2 thread pieces together with your thumb and finger right there, and then start your spin before you let go. I find if you hold it tight, get 3 or 4 turns, and then like let it go, and it'll start its natural spin. Keep it in place. Get it wound up nice and tight first. We're in theory making a bit of a, a brush here, so to speak, and then you're gonna like just massage that in, make it nice and tight. The gobies all have like a fairly light colored belly, and this creates a nice realistic look. And I guess what I should do, utilize my vise the way it's made to. Stick that on there. And you just want to create a bit of a taper without trapping too many fibers on the hook point, because that'll get you up to just behind the eyes. At this point, you could probably clip this and then probably catch bonefish on it. It's just like a spawning shrimp. I think they're the mantis shrimp kind of without extra rubber legs. To be fair, this fly could probably catch bonefish too, in the color pattern I've chosen. So basically, that one around there. Cool. All rubber legs are out of the way. There we go. Clean that up. Next, we're going to do is add the back, which will be a nice, I can't remember the exact color. I took it out of the package and got rid of the package a long time ago, but it's like a white, kind of light brown rabbit strip. You know the color code for that, Chris?
Yeah, it's not tan. Yep. Depending on brand, be ginger or light brown. Light brown, I think, probably most similar.
It might be light brown. Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it. Because I bought it, I remember first online, and I was like, oh, light brown. And then it came, I'm like, oh, it's mostly white. But it's since turned into one of my favorite carp fly colors. So you don't want this fly being huge, right? So we want to make sure that when you clip it, the zonker strip, the fibers on the material end roughly where the craft is. So it's only like, you can see the skin on this, the hide is only going to be a 1/4 inch past the bend of the hook. We're not going super far back. So just make sure you measure it all before you finish. And then you're going to pinch it where the eye is, separate those fibers. So I don't want to cut off too many fibers for no reason. We do actually want to trap fibers in the final tie-in process to create some bulk. So we want to make sure they're there. Then you're going to line it up again, find where it rests when it's flat against the body, roughly against the hook. So somewhere around there, punch it through the hook. Take it out of the vise, pull it around the bend, and pop it back in the vise. Okay, that's that. Pull that out of the way. We have another hen hackle to wrap here for the fins, the pectoral fins. Nice webby hen hackle will do again. Pull your fibers back. Trap them in. There you go. Okay, and just same thing, pull them back and wrap. And this will create maybe not a perfect looking pectoral fin while it's sitting still, but it'll create the nice silhouette of the pectoral fins that the gobies and sculpins are so known for. They're very prominent pectoral fins. That's what I'm trying to say. Come on. So those off the side will create that natural movement too, which will kind of drive them crazy. Go forward in front of the hook eye, pull your rabbit's anchor forward tight. You want there not to be too much room in there, and you want to actually trap all these fibers. That's key. Instead of parting it right there and tying in direct to the hide, I actually want this little bit extra bulk. Goby's got a big head, so you're gonna trap them in there. Just a couple wraps, and that'll create that nice hump that you can see. That's key for this fly, or for the sculpin rabbit strip, I find. And then just a few wraps there to secure it. If I see carp tailing in moving water and not in spawning mode, like outside of the spawning window, this is the first fly I'm throwing at them. It can represent the sculpin, the goby, any other living thing along the bottom, predominantly other crayfish too would work, equally well. You strip that fairly quick, everything will streamline, those rubber legs and everything. Absolutely deadly fly. Those webby hackles will stick off the side like a pectoral fin. And the profile of this from the top, which is the most important. If anybody's tying along or anything, you'll easily see it at your vise, but it's got that perfect sculpin goby profile. Big heavy head. It's going to sink nice and slow. It's going to swim really well. So if you get a fish engaged on this, nice slow hops and swims. Just keep it moving. What I like to say is when you can't physically see the fish feeding, so if there's a group of carp feeding, don't wait to feel the strike. You're not going to see the strike. Sorry, don't wait to see the strike because you're not going to see it. Just keep the fly moving. Cast into that school, 6-inch strip, 6-inch strip, over and over. And the minute you feel weight, just a 1-foot strip set, and just a check set. And if it gets tight, hold on. It could be a rock, but it could also be a 150-foot run in its first run. So yeah, I mean, those are my 3 go-to carp flies. So again, the hybrid. Often, if they're not chasing things, this is the #1 fly I throw. The carp wiggle hex, absolutely killer fly, and more on just the movement. This fly it's hard to replicate movement. And then we have this, what was it called again? Drawing a blank. That's so funny. Anyways, this sculpin-y goby pattern that I tie all the time that I'm drawing a blank on because it's 9 o'clock and getting tired. Oh, and then this one I forgot to mention, I just finished it off with some Sharpie along the top, just to add to it. Cool. Should we move on to a gar fly, or any questions or anything?
No questions, but that was great. You mentioned you like to reach for that sculpin in moving water if you see fish moving water being like smaller rivers as well.
If they're moving water, so they're up shallow, pushing water, tailing.
Gotcha. And would you cross any of those over to rivers much?
For sure. Carp and river are really challenging though, like getting them to, you got to find them in water where it's not so moving, I find, because you just got to get that presentation to sit in their face. If there's any current, it's hard. I've caught them on the grand, when you're nymphing and stuff under an indicator or with a small midge, it's happened. But I've also caught them plenty of times on the grand throwing these flies. Just in back eddies and finding those little pond-like sections. Yeah, lots of fun. And there's a lot of carp in that river. So if anybody's ever fished it, you've probably seen it. And if you thought you've hooked the biggest brown trout of your life and it turns into be a 20-pound carp, it's not just you. I've been there before. Awesome.
Cool.
So
on the main attraction then.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. While we're out there chasing these carp, you get lots of shots of gar. So here's this crazy not Frankenstein, it's actually a really nice looking streamer when I think about it, fly that I've developed over the last few years, and it is the only fly I tie right now that involves a treble hook. So watch your casts. It can make for a nasty experience, although no one's been hooked on it yet, knock on wood. Lots of gar have though. This is a play on a craft for kind of deceiver, so to speak, I guess. And also a play on the old nylon rope fly because it involves some rope, but not just rope, because you'll be there if you just throw rope flies and the 21-inch smallie eats your fly and you got no hook, and you're going to be pretty pissed at yourself. So this is mostly craft fur with some ice dub, some crystal flash or flashaboo, and the inner core of paracord actually, which is just a nylon braided rope I just have a bunch I've just tied into a little hank here together. I've knotted it at the top, and I've got a lot to work with. It doesn't take much. The trick with gar, it's hard to ask the room because I'm not looking at anybody, but if anybody's ever experienced it, they eat in a really strange way. I'm gonna just reverse the camera so I'm like talking to the group and not just looking at a fly. They don't seem to have the best eyesight, so you got to get the fly close to them. They're super spooky. They love to live in the shallowest, warmest water you can find. I'm usually fishing ankle to calf deep. Like, this is not deep water. And you have to have a fairly far cast to not spook them. You can't land the fly on top of them either, so you have to cast well beyond them and strip the fly right alongside them. The key, and this is something that I really only share with clients who are on the water, is to not hit them with like a T intersection or a 90-degree intersection. You want that fly to run alongside their face a little bit. You don't want it running, if this is their beak, running right alongside. You want it crossing the nose at 45 degrees, roughly 30, 40 degrees, just to come across the beak. That's really important for the way they actually eat and how they'll engage on your fly. If you cast at their nose, the tip of their nose, that's like 2 feet away from their actual eyes and their mouth. Like, these fish can sometimes be 50 inches plus. They might only be 12 or 15 pounds, because they're so skinny, but that's a far way away. And those fish, they do have lightning fast reflexes, but I don't think their eyesight's that good. So you got to get it close to their eye, which is way back. So I often joke with people is like, cast that fly at that fish and trying to like, not actually trying to snag it, but get it that close to the fish, pick it up, put it down, strip that fly across its beak. And one or two things will happen. It'll spook, which is obvious. It's going to just turn 90 degrees, 180 degrees, just swim away. Forget that fish. Usually when you find one, there are schools, like groups of them. Maybe not tightly together unless they're spawning, but you go into a back bay and you're probably going to see 20 to 30 fish on the spots I'll take you. Sometimes it's only one, but a lot of time it's a group. So forget that fish, move on to another target. I've had people who were literally standing in a bay, and as you make a cast, screw a fish, turn 20 degrees, there's another one at 20 feet, take a cast. It's a target-rich environment. It's the best way to learn to sight fish. So they'll either spook or they'll do what is the best case scenario. Their fins will twitch, they'll get excited. You'll see their pectoral fins go out, just twitch, their tail just quiver. You're like, okay, it's engaged. At this point, you need to just maintain a nice constant strip. You're not stripping it fast. It's not like a barracuda's chasing your fly. This fish is going to come slow at it, and it's going to come up alongside your fly. So I'm holding the fly, coming along, this way. Fish is coming alongside it. If the tip of my fingers are the actual tip of the mouth and my knuckles are the eye of the fish, it's going to come right up like this. It's going to eye it up, get right beside it. And then it's going to follow it, just continue along. And you're going to be like, I'm going to be sitting there just telling you, just strip, just slow, just 12-inch pulls, 15-inch pulls, just constant. And what will happen, it'll be lightning fast. All of a sudden, it's going to snap to the left. Just boom, that's it. Just like a mousetrap, snap. At that point, when it eats, please don't do anything. It's the only time, and I think that I guide, that I will not yell at you to set. So let that fish hit it. It's going to usually hit it near the head. Crunch it right behind the gills and the eye there. There's no hook there, but also the hook is kind of an insurance policy. It's for smallmouth, and also the odd time you'll clip a bit of skin on a gar. They're going to hit this and they're going to munch it. And they're going to try to take this fly. If you envision their teeth, when their mouth on average is a foot to 15 inches long, they're going to grab it and they're going to start spinning it around and twisting it and trying to munch it down to their mouth. I tell people to count to 7. That's always seems to be the magic number. Lucky number 7, count to 7. Once you've hit 7, there's no trout set, there's no strip set. It's put pressure on them, and put pressure on them just with a nice slow strip, get that rod bent, and just keep stripping them in. We're not pumping the rod. We're not like letting them run too much. We're usually running a really short leader, maybe 3 or 4 feet on an 8 weight with 20-pound test, nothing too crazy, but not super light, and just keep them tight, just keep stripping. If they want to run, they're obviously going to run, but you want to make sure that they're there. If you try to jar them, the rope that has now tangled in their teeth, so to speak, not really tangled, but twisted up in there, because I don't use too much rope. There's only 5 or 6 strands in there. We'll just pull right out. But that's where that trouble comes in. Sometimes you'll clip a bit of skin, or it'll go around the beak. It'll like actually get around on either side, and you can manage to keep them tight. And then you hopefully have a friend there standing there with a net, and you scoop it up for a shot because they come off really easy. You gotta celebrate the hookups for sure with this species. It's fun to get pictures with them. You haven't touched them before. They literally feel like sandpaper. They're the weirdest feeling fish. You think they're going to be slimy, and you grab them behind the eyes, and it's like Velcro. You stick so well, but then they'll thrash their head around quite a bit. And they got a lot of teeth, and some of them stick out left and right, so you got to watch the teeth. But super fun fish, and there's lots of them. So big thing to note with this fly, even though it involves nylon rope, it's not like a rope fly. A lot of the rope flies are starting to look down upon because they get tangled in the teeth. If you break off a fish, that fish is going to die. There's 6 pieces of rope in here. It's very light rope. Like it's not like a chunk of rope like a lot of them. But you still need to make sure when you are unhooking these fish that you don't leave any behind. Just take a look. If you have rope that's broken off, take your forceps, just untwist it. We're not using steel leaders or anything. Their teeth aren't serrated like a pike or muskie. They're just pointy and sharp. So they're not going to bite you off too often. Also with this 25 mil shank in here and the hook here, you've got a pretty good insurance policy from bite offs. But they're super fun. If you can't tell them when I'm talking about them, I get pretty excited. So it's just all about the eat. It's identical to sight fishing, anything I've ever done in saltwater. It's the only fish I know that will actively chase a fly like that, where I'm telling you to strip faster and faster. It's like, although they don't look anything like bonefish, it's kind of like throwing to a bonefish. So great practice, but also amazing species all on their own. A lot of people like to relate carp and gar to bone fishing, and I think they're pretty amazing on their own, and I don't like relating to that. Celebrate them for what they are. All right, so we're going to switch over back to the Vice view because you're probably sick of looking at me. And we are going to throw in the back portion of this fly, just the size 6 treble hook. This one is just a standard mustad treble you could buy anywhere, but I think you guys have the better ones, which are the Arex trebles. Those things are sticky sharp, and I think traditionally used more for tube flies for Atlantic salmon and such. But size 6 seems to be pretty good. I should also note, I haven't said that, do not tie your flies big or long. Max them out at about 3 inches. Even a big gar, they only have a small mouth. Like they've got a long mouth, but the actual throat on this fish is not big. So although they might get to 50 inches, they're not taking 12-inch flies. They're taking small flies, which is great because same flies bass will take, and if bass are in season, might as well catch them. For the majority of this fly, I'm going to be using just craft fur. This is the cream color. I really like it. It's like an off-white. It looks like a really natural white. The regular white's good too, but I don't know. This has always been one of my go-tos. All right, so the treble hook adds one extra level of complexity. You can't just tie the material on one side of the hook. You kind of need to tie it around in 3. So you're going to take small sections of craft fur. Just maybe 1/3 of what you would normally use, because we're going to tie it through. Clip it off. I'm just going to do that same thing, kind of stack it so the tips are somewhat uniform. I'm going to tie it short. Like we're only going to add 1.5 inches past the bend of the hook. On that side, just a couple of turns. And I find the gar, for the most part, aren't really in inland lakes so much. They are predominantly in the Great Lakes themselves. So Lake Ontario waterfront has them, Georgian Bay's got them, Lake Huron up here, the Saugeen stuff's got them. They're generally found in the shallowest, warmest back bays. The best day to fish for carp is carp and gar is the worst day to fish for trout. That's what I like to tell people. Sunny and flat calm, no wind, no clouds in the sky. Those fish, especially gar, are incredibly happy. Carp, well, they're always fickle, but that's what makes them fun.
And do you find, Matt, that there's like a time of year that gar show up more than another?
Sure. Yeah, so this is predominantly a spring fishery, which can present its own troubles because spring fishery, bass aren't open. So Mind your targets. There's probably a few people on here who have been out here with me when we're out gar and carp fishing and we're seeing bass, and I'm telling you, please don't throw at them. We all know they're easy to catch that time of year. It's tricky when you're out carp fishing and you haven't got a bite, and you're like, oh my God, there's a 21-inch smallie, I can catch it. You definitely could, but let's not. So keep that in mind. Try not to catch the smallmouth. You will accidentally catch enough. Do not target them. So yeah, I usually start looking for carp and gar. Well, about a week after trout opener. I start looking early May. They start showing up. The water's starting to warm up in those back bays, and they're happy. So that's all the back of the fly is, just some craft fur turns, 3 of them, nothing special. 3 whip finishes. And unlike carp flies, I'll throw some glue on. So I had some interest in, but just don't have it here with me. But yeah, that's it. Just a quickly dressed treble hook, like pretty straightforward. And then the carp are a short season. They are only around until early June, maybe mid-June, sometimes a little later, depending on water temperatures in the summer. Carp are technically a cool water fish. They aren't really a warm water fish that everyone thinks they are. They do prefer colder water if they have the option, so they will disappear. Gar, on the other hand, will usually hang out all summer. So where you've seen them in the spring, they'll usually be there in the summer. So you're gonna take a 25 mil shank, add that to your treble, keep it out of the way, mind your hook points. When you start brushing your feather materials back, keep in mind of these. I've definitely hooked myself a couple of times doing this. Or there's another fly tie for gar that involves a short, I don't know, maybe it's a 1.5 inch section of 30 or 40 pound mono or fluoro to a single size 10 hook, and then a size 8 hook at the front. And all the time I forget I have that little hook back there, and I brush the material back and jam that size 10 nymph hook into my finger. It is brutal. And I am now to the point where I'm making sure it's barbless when I'm tying it, because I've hooked myself enough with that fly. I can tell you so many sad stories about when I used to fish this on its own without a treble, just a little bit of rope, that you get a giant smallie, eat it, and game over. So sometimes you can actually incorporate, if you want to, you can incorporate some rope into the back too. Doesn't matter. I think a lot of time they hit it in the midsection. That's where they get tangled. So I'm just going to do that for today. This fly is pretty straightforward. The middle can be one of 2 materials I've had success with. One is the medium polar chenille, just for some internal, glint. Or I like to use the white or pearl ice dub, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to do a dubbing loop. I think it looks a little bit more realistic. But again, I don't think they are the pickiest of eaters. You just got to get the fly close to them. The other colors I tie this fly in, so almost all of them involve white. White and chartreuse, white and blue, white and gray, white and brown, white and tan. But a great one is black and chartreuse sometimes. They love that sometimes. I'm not quite sure why. I think it's just a contrast thing. Maybe on a bright day, it probably really stands out, to be honest. It just looks different, and it's the right size and profile. All right, so we're gonna stick some this white ice dubbing. SLF dubbing would work really well too. But whatever you got that's nice and shiny in this dubbing loop, fairly sparse. The wax is on there to help it from falling out too much. You don't want to do too much of this because it won't spin properly.
Jonathan was asking if it'd be viable to tie this like as a tube fly or something to take the treble out.
Take the treble out. Oh, when you're tying it. Yeah, you probably could. I do like the fixed shank just for that added interactions you get with northern pike too. So you do have a little bit of tippet protection if you get into some of the smaller pike that'll inhabit these same bays. And in the end, when I'm guiding for carp and gar, it's kind of like the greatest thing about this fishery is, sure, that's your goal, But if you're there when bass is open or pike's open or whatever, like so many target species, bass, carp, gar, sheep's head, channel cats, like it's pretty wild. So having something that can do everything is pretty great. But yeah, you can play with a tube for sure. So now I'm just gonna palmer that up. Just kind of just semi-touching turns. Don't get too crazy about it. And I want to leave, I put a little too much ice down on there, so we're going to leave about an 1/8 of an inch or so just for the final materials to get in there. The cool thing about gar is there's a lot of things happening in the fly world with the fly design and stuff. I'm even seeing, I haven't tried them yet, but some flies that incorporate like a lasso design, like wrap around their beak, and when you get tight, it slips, and it's kind of crazy. So yeah, so now you got your body, really simple. We're going to take that same craft fur. We're going to do an underwing, so from the belly. Take a pretty good chunk. This is going to be tied in 2 steps. So the bottom and then the top. So we're going to do a pretty good chunk. And I'm going to do the best color for me, which is white on the bottom, tan on top. Looks a lot like something out in Georgian Bay from my old bait shop days when I was a kid and working in high school, called the sand shiner, which is a very common bait fish out there, similar to an emerald shiner, but it's tan, not the greeny blue we're used to seeing. And when Lake Simcoe when the bait guys, the individuals they buy bait off of couldn't get emerald shiners, they would go to Georgian Bay and get sand shiners. And there's a ton of them in there. So that, got enough room to make that pretty after. There we go. Cool. And we're purposely going to make a bit of a bigger thread head because I want somewhere to put a set of eyes. If you just put eyes on the material, they don't tend to last all that long. And fair enough, you'll probably lose them after a couple fish anyways, but and you get the tan just on top. So this whole fly is not 4 inches long. It's 3.5 is kind of ideal. I'm going to just massage that around so you get a nice profile. And then because we're fly anglers and we like to make things pretty, I'm going to add gills and eyes. I don't think they actually need it. I said it's just the movement of the fly near their face is usually enough. So I'm going to just take some red flashaboo, cut off about a 3-inch section to play with, square it up. Transfer it over to my right hand. There you go. And just make a short set of gills. And contrast never hurt anyone. And then on the back side as well. Both only about 1/2 inch long, not getting crazy with it. The great thing about this fly is the way that it is weighted because of the treble hook off the back, the shank in the middle. The fly rides so level, and there you probably witnessed me hook myself, but it came out. It rides so level, and it almost suspends on the strip, which is just amazing, and it drives them crazy. Nice little whip. Just the one's probably enough because we're going to finish it with some CA glue and some eyes. So get yourself some like 4mm eyes. Don't get giant ones. Don't want them to look too big, but that's a nice profile, I think.
Sorry, Matt. Was I just not paying attention entirely, or did we miss the rope?
Oh shoot! Yeah, we did miss the rope. You're right. Thank you for the reminder.
I know I'm
getting tired.
Yeah, it's late. Maybe I missed it, but
no. You keeping me on track here, buddy. I tied this fly. So I tied 20 of these today, and I can't believe I've forgotten this. Thank you for the reminder. It would work on its own too with the treble. But so you're gonna take your nylon rope. You're gonna take 2 strands of it. Cut it. And the great thing about this is it is the last step. It does go over top of the material. I don't want it hidden in there. So you caught me at the exact right moment. And I was just testing you, Chris, just testing you. So you're gonna tie in your section of rope. It's gonna ride across the top as long as the craft fur. Couple of wraps. And another one. And do 4 on the head of this, just going around the entire head of the fly. And then you're going to take your dubbing needle and you're going to brush it out. You're going to pick the rope apart so it's into its individual fibers. And one on the bottom. Cool thing about this nylon rope is it's got a lot of natural, like, I don't want to say natural, I guess, but like shimmer to it. So it actually creates like a cool kind of scaled effect. Cool. Awesome. You take a needle and just try to split them at the tip. There you go. And it'll start splitting pretty quick. And you can just like pull them apart. It'll start to unwrap. There you go. So be left with this nice crinkly kind of wavy material, 2 little strands, so that those 4 turn into 8. And then this is what will get tangled up in their teeth. And it's it doesn't just like when I was first tying these and I was like, how does this work? Like I was running a dog brush through it and it wasn't getting snagged up. And this doesn't make any sense. The whole trick is you just got to wait for them to tangle it, let them chew on it. They're just positioning it. Like you see, look, it's that dubbing brush just got stuck in it, right? So if that was just one or dubbing brush, that needle got stuck. So all it takes is 5, 6, 7 seconds for them to chew on it a bunch and get it all messed up. And then they tend to stay pretty well hooked. If you get one jump out of them and they stay attached, you're probably going to land the fish. If you get one and they come off on the first jump, well, you jumped one. And a lot of people I find are quite nervous around them. They're quite a funky looking fish. If you've handled pike and muskie, it's one thing. These things look like a snake when you go to grab them. See how that rope instantly got like knotted up there? See how it's like twisted? I don't know if you can catch it on camera, but like that's holding the needle. I'm putting some pressure on it. That's what we're purposely doing. Yeah, and one last one here.
Any tips for folks on, sounds silly, but finding these 50-inch fish sitting in shallow water and seeing them?
Sure, find warm, protected, shallow back bays. Utilize, like I talked in that bass talk the other night, like utilize Google Maps or, to find the spots, or, there's guys like me out there that'll take you and show you areas that would be useful. They are borderline swampy bays in the middle of the summer. I do find though, you need to find a nice transition of like muddy, warm bays and something you can walk in. So ideally the water is going to be shallow and warm from like limestone bottom, so then you can at least walk around. If it's muck, the fish will be there, but you just can't get to them. I know from all the spots where people have been going crazy for them around the Ottawa River, those bays are generally quite muddy and they fish them from a boat a lot of the time. But where I fish, it's all very hard bottom and fairly nice area to fish. All right, now the last step is to put eyes on, but I had them and then they just, as things do at your fly time, oh, there they are, disappear. Cool. So everything's going to be underneath that glue, so you don't need to make it look pretty. Put on a nice dab of glue. Take a nice sharp pair of scissors or your dubbing needle stab a pupil, put it on and hold it. Should stick and come off cleanly. There we go. Then massage it in, make sure it's where you want it. If you do it with your fingers, inevitably you're going to glue an eye to your finger. And that's fine. Comes off pretty easy, but you'll be pissed off because you messed up enough eyes. If you can find any sort of like thick CA glue, I like it a little more. Gives you a little bit longer working time. The thin stuff just tends to run and start to set, but works well. Put that where you want it. There you go. Take your scissors again and just kind of tap them into place. If you're going to use your fingers, a lot of time I like to just like wet your fingers. You glass of water, just give your fingers a little lick, and then you can put them, and the glue won't stick to you right away. And then all I do, is take some UV glue, like the Solaris, anything thin, that doesn't really matter, something to let it get in there a little bit. Everybody's got glue, different UV resins now, so this the Solaris thin. Build a little base, hit it with a light, give it a, you're gonna build it up. You don't want to put on too much because it'll take forever to cure. So give it 10 seconds or so. And then one thing I do is I'll actually, like, once I get a sunny day, all these flies, I'll lay them out quickly outside when I'm really bake. They do a pretty good job, the lights, but like actually the I played with that, I think it's the Loon Infinity light recently. It was pretty dang good. My cheaper light doesn't do it as well, but like 10 seconds on each side, and then I'll go back through and do a second coating. And it creates a really nice durable head. Once this stuff really cures, it's set. Solaris is really fairly tack-free once it's fully cured, I find. Creating a purpose little bulb on there. And yeah, that's my garfly. Just been calling it Martin's garfly. I don't really have anything else to call it. If anybody's fished with me, they know I like to mess with patterns and make them my own. And I guess that's one of the great things about fly tying is we can be so creative. I don't fish a lot of flies besides maybe a woolly bugger and a clouser that I haven't changed. Cool. That is it. So that little bit of rope there is on the outside on purpose. Once they, even the one that I tied beforehand, you can see it is on the outside. It's not that I just told you because I messed up. It's designed to be like that. So when a fish grabs it, it's the first thing they come in contact with, and they get to twist all those little fibers up and makes a pretty good little bait fish profile.
Yeah, super fishing. You're right. That rope gives a nice sheen. Like, swap out the treble or whatever, just tie that as a regular streamer for bass.
Totally. Totally. And honestly, like I pinched the barbs on this too. And it's a great bass fly. Like, yeah, sure. I always will, when we're walking the flats, I've always got, a carp rod rigged up, and then I've got a gar rod. And when the bass are in season, if we see one, we're just going to pick up the 8 weight I have rigged up and chuck at it. And it's probably going to take it. Because of the treble too, it hits them, and it's really not that bad on a bass. Barbless treble doesn't do much damage.
It is a very small treble too, right?
Totally, yeah, and it's articulated, so it's going to move. Let them shake their head.
Yeah, it's not going to fry and carve anything up.
Exactly. Like if you think of the conventional world, we're using 2 and 3 trebles on a crankbait or a stick bait. Like it's really nothing. So, yeah, that's my garfly. Love it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's a simple fly to tie. You can tie a whole bunch of them. They get chewed up pretty good, but they're pretty durable, and they stand up. They catch a lot of fish. So I have a lot of people asking me about what flies I'm catching those gar on, and I would say 90% of them come on this. Because it's so unweighted. It fishes only under the surface, only a couple inches. The other fly that I fish for them is tied very similarly with the same kind of platform, but I tie it with a gurgler head on it. I keep it. But then I run a stinger off of a shank and then rope, and that's my go-to instead of a treble. But because generally I'm fishing the gurgler when the weeds are within a foot of the surface. If you're fishing some really shallow weedy bays, this treble will pick up everything. So fish a gurgler, and you don't pop it. It's just a nice little waking strip, just to engage those fish, and they'll happily hit a surface
So
fly.
do they even float in that case, or is it just enough to kind of keep it subsurface?
Yeah, it floats. I double the 2 mil foam over, so it's got a bit of buoyancy. Cool. Excuse me. The cool thing about gar, this is extra time right now, is they are so they're such an old species of fish, like bowfin, and just like bowfin, they're air breathers. They can gulp air off the surface. So if you're walking around, you asked before how to find them, just keep your ears open when you're fishing. You're going to hear them. They'll come up and you'll hear a little splash. And if you start to zero in where that splash is, you'll usually see little beaks just breaking the surface. And they do that. It's why they've been so successful. Like, they find those exact same long nose and spotted and alligator gar from, millions of years ago, right? Those fish are the same, haven't changed, or little at least. And they've been able to survive long hundreds of years with poor water quality because they can just breathe air. And it's also great because you can hold them up, get a couple good pictures, not feel bad about keeping your fish too wet. It's also great because when you're unhooking the rope, sometimes it takes 15-20 seconds to get the rope fully out of there. If that was a trout, you'd feel really guilty. But the gar are resilient animals. They're really cool to watch. If you're seeing massive schools of them and you're throwing flies at them and they're not even looking at your flies, only time they're ever schooled up touching is when they're spawning. And when they're spawning, just like carp, they are not interested. I've not found a gar that will eat a fly while spawning. That goes to say they're coarse fish, go for it. You can target them. There's nothing legal about it. There's no season on them. You can cast with them while spawning. You just aren't going to catch them. Find those fish that are on the outskirts, maybe in 4 or 5 feet of water, or 3 or 4 feet of water instead of 1 foot of water, that are still pre-spawn. And those ones will engage. Just same goes for carp. Spawning carp, it's not going to happen. There's so many people out there who've tried to figure it out, and when they're spawning, they've got one thing on their mind. And you can tell they're spawning because they're in massive schools and they're all body to body and they're writhing over each other like snakes, kind of like if you lifted a rock in the spring and found garter snakes, same kind of look. They're just all over each other. Feeding fish, feeding carp are one of two things. They're either in singles or in small groups, just cruising and going slow. If you see them going at a walking speed or faster, those fish are moving. Don't even throw a fly. You're just going to spook them. Follow those fish though, if you can, because they're going to take you to feeding fish probably. Or they're solo and they're sitting still. And those are my favorite ones to target. Most people would, if they're thinking like redfish or bonefish, looking for feeding fish, a solo carp sitting still, there's no one around it to alert it if you make a bad cast. If you've got to cast over these fish 15 feet to be able to get the fly in front of them, you're likely going to land on another one if there's a group of them. So solo fish, sitting still, and you just get that fly 6 inches from its face and watch it turn. That's what their dreams are made of in carp fishing. And sometimes, you've probably got people in here who've been out with me, where it's just like dapping, like you're in tight, you're in the cattails and you can't make a cast, and you just reach out with a liter length of line out of your rod and you just drop that fly slowly on top of their head and just twitch it above their head. If they eat it, it's a hard trout set. Try to keep them tight, steer them towards open water, and then let them run. So that's kind of the way I fish them.
We had there were a couple other just quick questions before we wrap here. So one, if there are any material substitutions that also work for that gar fly. So I assume they're talking about the rope.
The rope.
Anything you found? I mean, paracord is easy enough to find. You can get it
easy to find.
any outdoor store.
Yeah, I mean, like it's everywhere. I haven't found anything. I'm thinking like a lot of the materials we use in fly tying, like
some would probably get tangled up
maybe.
Big fly?
Big fly, maybe.
It's pretty thin. It's pretty slick. I would almost lean further toward like an SF or an EP because it's got the crinkle.
EP was pretty coarse, right? It would straighten out like.
EP's got some good crinkle and mats. I'm thinking of materials that mat together, but
true.
I don't think they're going to be as good.
Yeah, it's just this like if you read up on it, everything's nylon rope.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, I mean, it's
Buy
paracords
yourself.
cheap.
I
It's
hate,
probably
I
get
hate
the
to say
dollar
it,
store.
but yeah, I was gonna say, I hate to say it, but dollar stores got it. Spend $1.50, you're gonna get 100 yards of the stuff. Not really. You're probably gonna get 10 yards of it, but break it down, cut off a 1 meter section, pull out the inner cores. There's 7 strands in there, just look like this, and then just group them all together, tie them together in an overhand knot, and you got a nice little hank to work with. Knot material will last you forever. It's a wicked material to play with.
And
Yeah.
then Chris was asking if you're looking for gar, I guess, in big lake back bays or smaller inland back bays for gar.
Always big lake back bays. They are only, from my experience, and if you've seen them elsewhere, tell me. I only see targetable numbers in the Great Lakes. I haven't seen them in Lake Simcoe. Not saying they've never been there. They're attached to, through the canal system, but I've never seen them there.
Yeah, there are a few rivers, like you say, that definitely have them. Like
Severn River would have them.
Down towards
Mouth,
for sure.
Yeah, exactly. The Moira River, the Severn River, all those would have them.
The Ottawa, the Grand has spotted gar, I believe.
Grand has spotted, yeah.
And then like say Saugeen.
Yeah, and those are
probably
all
others.
Yeah, but inland lakes, I just haven't seen them.
Yeah, but like Georgian Bay, I know they exist from.
There's one exception, Gloucester Pool. It's pretty much on Georgian Bay.
That's Georgian Bay.
Yeah, it's one dam, and it used to be part of the bay, so there's fish in there. But no, most time Lake Huron, Lake Georgian Bay, Lake Ontario, look on Google Maps, find secluded back bays that have some marshy material in the back, and go take a look. Time on the water is your best bet with this stuff. Is just go look. I've never had a bad day fishing. A lot of my gar spots I found while I was pan fishing. Going to fish for bluegill with a small popper, and then all of a sudden there's gar everywhere, and wish I brought something bigger. An 8-weight's usually good. I haven't found a reason to go any heavier. You could go with a 10-weight maybe, but the flies are pretty small. Even a big fish, 45 inches, 46 inches, 50 inches, weighs 12, 15 pounds. It's totally manageable on an 8-weight. And you're not whipping around a 10-weight all day, which is fun. And the presentation is a little more gentle and does everything. So I should say there's one other way to fish these. Similar to the way I've had guides in the salt rig up a barracuda fly for me quick. And that's keeping one of these rigged up, pre-tied on a length of monofilament with a perfection loop in the end, and then doubling the perfection loop through the bend of your carp fly, and then basically attaching it and pulling it tight and making a quick cast. So you can fish like a tandem fly, but they're really just targeting that one fly. And then you're tight. And that's a quick way if you're only carrying one rod around, because when you're solo on these flats, you don't want to be carrying 2 rods. It's horrible. There's no way to do it right. The wind's going to come from different angles. You're going to change casting positions. It's just nasty. So if you're with me, I always carry a second rod by yourself, solo rod, rig one of these up just with a length of mono that you can quickly attach with a perfection loop, and you'll be good. It's a good way to fish.
Moral of the story: rent them out.
Yeah.
Definitely. Sweet.
Cool.
Well, thanks again for coming back so quickly.
You're welcome.
And we're gonna have you back again very quickly.
Next week in the shop, we're going to be going over some of these flies in person. It's going to be a tie-along event. The whole topic on that event is Ontario flats fishing. So we're not only going to be tying carp and gar, but I'm going to show you a couple of my favorite bass flies. That's what everyone gets excited about when I start talking about flats. Like, for those of you I've taken there, you don't see a lot of small fish. Everything's 17, 18 inches or bigger. You don't go into 30 fish days too often, although it has happened. It's quality fishery. And the best part about it is you're watching everything happen. So you get to watch these 5-pound smallmouth turn on your fly, suck it up. Fantastic fishery and underpressured, underutilized. Because a lot of the spots I go, the bigger boats just can't get into. It's just so shallow, protected by rocks, nice and safe. And it's super fun. And we'll be doing 1 gar fly, 1 carp fly, 1 bass fly, maybe 2 bass flies. We'll see how much time we have. And I'll bring along something to show some pictures and stuff like that. We'll talk about locations a little bit, and we'll go from there. Super fun.
That one. That's going to be, for anyone interested, that's going to be next Wednesday, 7 p.m. at the shop. So not online, but in person at the shop. Because that one's going to be a tie along, it's going to be open to a maximum of 8 people. And you're going to have to pre-register. It'll cost just a couple bucks to cover the cost of materials for you, and you'll come away with some flies. So hope that not everyone here, because there's enough space for everyone here, but a few of you at least will get in on that one. And I'm really looking forward to helping out with that. So that'll be good. In the meantime, Matt, if anyone did want to book a day with you, get out this coming season, how they get in touch?
Same as always, you can look me up on my website, smoothriver.ca, email me, smoothriverguiding@gmail.com, or if you're on social media, I'm quite active, Smooth River Guiding. You'll see me on there, sharing photos of my flies like crazy right now, because it is tying season, and every once in a while I'm still getting out steelheading, can believe it. So there's lots of nice rainbow trout photos recently. So yeah, I'm very responsive, easygoing individual. Please reach out with any questions at any time. Happy to help. It's definitely an open book.
Yep.
Maybe too much.
maybe
too much.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Matt, for coming on. Thanks everyone for joining us.